hype about living the dream? It's time for truth. This is the place for tools, power, and real talk so you can create the life you dream and deserve. Your ultimate life. Subscribe, share, create. You have infinite power.
Hello there, welcome to Your Ultimate Life. Excited to have you here. I've got an interesting picture behind me. I hope you're looking at the video. It's a monk, and they're sitting in the snow. And, meditating, I'm assuming, or something like that. And I use that picture because I titled to this episode, Finding Your Mojo, Finding Motivation. Different things motivate us. When we're scared, we get motivated really hard. Like if you think you're going to die, your motivation goes off the charts. Your body cooperates, pumps, adrenaline and other things into your bloodstream, and everything, everything non-essential shuts down. Blood flows to the big muscle groups, and, your vision narrows, and you're really focused on the fight or flight thing. And that's one motivation. I'm talking about something more subtle. Hopefully you're not regularly in life-threatening situations at any time. Although, I don't know. You see a lot of news these days with so many things happening. It's scary. I saw today, I'm recording this on a day in December when there was essentially a public execution in New York outside of a hotel, some health care CEO or something. I didn't get details. But anyway, I'm not talking about that kind of motivation. This podcast is about you creating your ultimate life. Now, in order for you or me to create anything, we got to know what it is. So if you're going to create your ultimate life, you got to have a definition or a parameters or boundaries. And I have found at least that the clearer they are, the more powerfully descriptive, the better, the more motivating it is. We're talking about finding motivation. One piece of finding motivation is clarity. If I say, I want to make some more money, and I go to a place where I'm going to sell a product or service, and I don't really know, have a goal in mind, and I just kind of mess around, and it probably isn't going to turn out so well. If I go there and think I'm not leaving here without connecting with 3 people and making 3 sales of some type, then my motivation is completely different, and I'm focused, and I keep at it, and I move, and I move, and I move, and keep going until the goal is accomplished. So motivation is increased by clarity. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. If you think about, there was a NFL football player, and I don't know if this is true, but the story was, I think his name was Jerry Rice. He played for the 49ers a number of years ago when they were a dynasty and had won a number of Super Bowls in a row. That on the practice field, every time he caught the ball, wherever it was on the field, he ran all the way to the end zone. And he was visualizing, practicing, every time I catch the ball, I'm in the end zone. And he went and did that all the time. Now, that was the story. I didn't witness it, so I'm assuming there's some truth to that, but he was legend in terms of his catching and ability and running and all the things. And that had to do with the clarity of his goal. I touch ball, I'm in the end zone. And if he got tackled, which obviously happens sometimes, that was an aberration, because when I catch the ball, I'm in the end zone. So clarity is a place for motivation. Understand that and write that down. So extreme clarity, the clearer your goal is, the more you have motivation. Now let's take a break for a second and talk about what is motivation. Well, you can define it lots of ways, but motivation, for a working definition here, let's talk about the force, the decision, the impetus, the will to create a certain outcome, right? Now, studies have proved that willpower alone is a limited resource. That simply willing something to happen, it's neurochemistry inside of us, and it runs out. So the question is, how do we amplify or lengthen that resource? Because times when you've been ready to do something, excited about it, and you get up. I do that. I get up every day. Obviously, since I get up every day, so do you. What I do when I get up is I do a morning creation process. You've heard me talk about that before. It's lengthy, 2.5 hours. And the intent of that is to create the very best Kellan I can create. Motivated, powerful, on target, on focus, clear about what I'm doing, full of love and all the rest. Because, my goal is to reach 300 million people this year to help you create any goal you want. So I'm that. I'm motivation in a package. I'm energy in a package, examples, frameworks, tools, enthusiasm, permission. Sometimes people need permission to access their higher selves. I'm that. But in order for me to have that to give away, I've got to fill me up with it. I've got to fill it up. And for me, this isn't a game or a jacket that I put on or a character that I play. This is who I am all the way to the core. So I don't have to pretend or fake it or put on an act. This is just who I am. I have chosen to be that person. That by itself. So I said first, clarity of outcome is a motivator. A second, super high-powered source of motivation is to have it come from your deepest heart. It comes from who you are, not what you're doing. So I'll give you an example. If I'm here and I want to get here, let's say I have a goal of releasing some weight, losing some pounds, right? That's certainly been a goal at different times in my life. And if I view myself as someone who's out of shape and exercise is going to be a drudge, and I'm going to hate giving up whatever it is I got to change in my diet if I'm, eating too much of this or that, then all of the effort is this white-knuckled fight. Because who I am in my head and my heart is an overweight person. I'm overweight. And, it's going to take a lot of work. I'll never get there. Okay, if that's who I am, then all of the work climbing this hill is a white knuckle fight. If, on the other hand, I somehow, and we'll talk about the somehow in a minute, I change in my mind who I am from an overweight couch potato to an energetic, trim, strong, powerful dude. And if that's how I really see myself, then the actions necessary to go from here to here, they're like, duh, that's what I do. And this isn't just hype. I experienced that when I was in my late 30s. I was nearly 100 pounds, 90 pounds overweight, quite heavy. I wasn't in good shape at all, and in addition to being overweight. And I had young children. And one day, I just said to myself, you know what? At that time, I had 3 or 4 kids. I have 10 now, but I had 3 or 4 at the time. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to be the dad who is fat, overweight, and there was nothing, genetically wrong with me or, hormones or whatever. I worked a lot and I had 2 jobs. One of them I loved and one I had because I felt like I needed more money. But anyway, I'm not going to be the dad who's out of shape, who can't play with his kids, who can't run around on the yard and, play football in the street. And I'm not going to be that guy. I'm just not going to be that guy. And that wasn't a wistful thought. It was a fist-thumping certainty. So I changed who I was from a wannabe, an overweight wannabe, to I'm an in-shape, active dad who plays with his kids. That's just who I am, period, end. That created the motivation. So over the next year, I accomplished that. I lost 90 pounds and was in fabulous shape, very, very limber, and I chose to do it through martial arts. I went to a place near our home and went twice a week and then worked out on the other days, worked hard, et cetera, et cetera. So I did it without any, assistance in terms of drugs or any of that kind of stuff. I did it just the hard way, diet and exercise. I'm busting my ass because I'm not that guy. So that changed who I was being. So that's another way to think about it. And the clarity of where I was going played into that. So one is clarity. Two is changing how you see yourself. Changing how you see yourself. Now that might feel like a difficult thing because where you are, you are. However, it is true with any difficult thing. Okay? There was a time in my life where I had some addiction problems, separate from being overweight, different years. And so I attended rehab meetings and that sort of thing. And that's a key element there. You have to begin, if you want to succeed, to consider yourself as a sober person. That means you get over the grinding and the self-hate and the fact that other people may not support you in your journey or whatever it is. But that's part of the process. I am sober. I am sober. I may only be sober one day, but damn it, I'm sober. And then, you leave the meetings, here's to another 24. So it's changing how you see yourself. Changing what you see as possible is another awesome source of motivation. Now, one way that I found really helpful to change what I see as possible is to recognize who I am, and by extension, who you are. In 2018, which was a few years ago, I died. I had a fatal illness and died in the ICU of the University of Alberta Hospital in Edmonton here. During that time, I was in a coma for 17 days, and I had 3 conversations with God at the door between life and eternity. And I learned in those conversations some real truths, and one of them is something we all feel inherently, but we don't live up to, or at least I didn't used to. And that is, look, you're a divine being. You're a child of God. The pedigree of your spirit is one line, you, God, regardless of the genealogy of your body. When I realized that, it changed how I saw everything. If I'm actually a child of the divine, of God, I'm going to take care of this spirit, this body. I'm going to show up for life. I'm not going home to the divine all busted and broken and making excuses. I'm not doing that. And again, that sort of fist-thumping certainty about who you are, right? If I say to myself, well, I'm a busted drug addict, I've made too many mistakes, I can never be okay, if that's how I allow myself to talk to me and to believe about myself, then it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, and I'm going to stay right where I am. If, on the other hand, I say, well, I am not that. I might have been that. I was that yesterday. I am not that now. I am not that now. So working on that and learning to both change your mindset by realizing the truth. So there's no faking till you make it here. The truth is you're a divine being. The truth is you have infinite possibility. You may not have used it. I hadn't. I'd ignored it and all kinds of stuff. And I'd allowed it to be, beat out of me by circumstances in life and so forth. And then I said, well, I used to do that. I'm not. I'm done. I'm going to live up to and into my divine heritage. So that choice is always mine and yours. And that created staggering motivation for me. So another way to create motivation is to think about the goal that you want. So if you are finishing a big project at work, and it takes a lot of work and maybe some late nights and extra time, and been working on it for a long time, it gets very drudgy, right? Here's something that I learned that helps me. I think of the finished project. I think of it done and dusted, finished, turned in, written, 1-inch thick binder or whatever it is, written, finished, up to speed, up to snuff. Here you go. And the feeling that I have with that being true. So visualizing that success. I read an article, and that creates motivation for me. I read an article the other day about Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian I think there's 23 medals or 23 golds or something, most decorated Olympian to date of all time. And he talked about this visualization thing. So part of his practice wasn't just the swimming, but he visualized the dive. He visualized landing a certain way and did it in a visceral way that participated in his body. Visualized this and that and all of those things, every step of it. And he took it a further step, which I found really interesting in the article, and that was this. He visualized mess ups, like his goggles filling with water, and then what he would do, what action he would take, and, fighting through that, and all of the difficult things that could happen. And then the article went on to say, and I think it was the 2008 Olympics, halfway through the 200-meter, I think it was the butterfly, which was his awesome world-class specialty, his goggles filled with water and he couldn't see anything. And, most swimmers would have been frustrated and quit at that point, or at a minimum, been slowed way down because of that happening. Because he had practiced and visualized that, he simply counted strokes, knowing how many it took for each 50-meter lap of the pool. He ignored it, went on with stroke counting, not seeing, and won, and set an Olympic record, and set a world record with his goggles full of water. That came from visualizing the outcome and being committed. Okay, so those are some different ways to create motivation. Now, motivation, again, is defined as the internal will to make something happen, the internal determination to stick with something. Now, I want you to think of a couple things right now, maybe just one thing in your life right now that's difficult for you. But every time you think about it, you're like, crap. I don't want to go work on that. Is there something else I can do? Where you feel, you don't want to, you're not motivated. I want you to try some of this. Now, at any time, you or I, we're free to say, I'm not doing that project, take it off the plate and forget about it. If you do that, you have to be able to do it with no guilt. If you do that or think about doing it and you believe or know that you're not keeping your word, you're not keeping a commitment you've made to yourself or someone else, then that's not really an option. Because when you make a commitment, when I make a commitment, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm making it happen. I'm taking it over the finish line. And if some extraordinary thing happens that gets in the way, then my first action is to go to the person or situation where I've made the commitment and explain what's going on and make a new commitment consistent with what I'm able to do. But just giving up or ghosting it, that isn't on the table. That's not on the table. Okay. So those are some ways to create motivation. Clarity. Okay. Loving yourself, visualizing outcomes, affirming your commitment to a certain project. Excuse me. An interesting thing about this is we all say yes to things we don't really want to do. And we say yes because we think it's expected, or we think somebody's going to get mad at us, or whatever. And then one of two things happens. Well, three things. We fulfill it anyway, bust in and do a great job. That's what you could do. A lot of times people don't. Second is you do a half-baked job because you said you would and you have to and you just sort of show up. Bleh. Third is you ghost them and don't do it at all. That choice has leftovers for your life. When I was a person who made a commitment and didn't keep it, ghosted, just blew it off. Yeah, I'll say whatever. And unfortunately, especially during years that I struggled with addictions and so forth, I did that. I made a commitment, had no intention. I just to say what I needed to say and then blew it off. It infected for me every area of my life. I couldn't depend on me for anything. And it really was, well, if I still feel like it, if I remember, if I don't get a better offer, then I might go ahead and do whatever it was that I said I was going to do. And that wrecked relationships. It totally trashed my opinion of myself because I became an untrustworthy person who said whatever needed to be said and didn't plan to deliver, or sort of vaguely hoped I could remember and deliver whatever. So it's damaging, not just for that project or that relationship, but that's a thing that infects your whole life, because the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. Now, I want to go into a different track here, and that is, so what? Why do I care about motivation? Well, maybe you don't. Some people live life just kind of whatever, haphazardly, go with the flow, do what shows up. You're free. Me, you, we are free to live like that. And I have spent some years of life living like that, and I haven't found those to be very satisfying. Okay, I'm not telling you in any way, shape, or form how you have to do things, but what I'm saying is my experience is creating that ultimate life of purpose, prosperity, and joy, where you are driven by your own internal purpose every day. It doesn't waver. You know what you're about and what you're doing. In the process of doing that, you create a lot of value and a lot of cash because you're providing big value. And then from that service and that intense focus, you have extraordinary joy. I use those three words because that's the path for me. My purpose is to help 300 million this year, to realize your divinity, your capability, your possibility, and then help you do something with it, to add good to the world, to make a good living, and to make an impact on as many people as you can. And in the process, have more fun than you ever thought you could. So that's my commitment. I do it. I work on it every day. I don't do anything else. 300 million is my goal, and I think about it every day. I talk about it every day. I talk about it every time I interact with someone, interview someone, I'm interviewed by someone, because it's all about blessing your life. It's all about helping you right now remember who you are and then doing something with that thing. So it matters. Creating motivation matters if you want it. Okay, if you're a person who has big dreams and has big goals and you have been stymied or stuck, then here's my invitation. Take the principles that we've talked about and apply them. If you'd like further help, get a hold of me, because my only work is to help you get what you want. Now, there's a URL on the screen, KellanFluckigerMedia.com. I invite you to go check that out. There on that page, KellanFluckigerMedia.com, there's some books and links to other programs and an email to get a hold of me and that sort of thing. I love getting to know people. I love you already because I know you're a divine being. I know you have infinite capability. I've never met a person in this phase of my life. Now, in earlier phases before 2007, I was a different person. But in this part of my life, the last 17 years, I've never met anybody that it wasn't easy to love and easy to see their power and capability. That's what makes the work that I do, this coaching stuff, so much fun. I love working with people like you, Olympic athletes waiting to happen, right? People that are just craven to make a big impact on the world. And what I notice is that nearly everyone I talk to has a story, has a set of circumstances in their life that they have overcome. And so they're thinking, I sure could help people with this. And they feel a desire to do that. Where they get stuck is this motivation thing. I don't know how. I started and I tried and it didn't work. I don't know. Nobody will listen. That kind of story that comes from fear, that comes from uncertainty. And every one of us feels that, some more than others, but we all have it. One of the things that I do is when I speak at different conferences is as a motivational speaker. I can't give you motivation. I'm going this weekend. It'll be over long before you hear this, but going this weekend to give a talk in a mastermind before maybe 100 people in New Orleans. And It's a motivational talk. Now, it's not just about saying, rah, rah, you can be cool. It's about specific actions, the ones we've talked about, plus several more, about how to create motivation for your precious and sacred goals. Not once in a while, not haphazardly, not accidentally, but every time, dependably, reliably, powerfully, you can create motivation to take any goal that you have over the goal line. Now, you may or may not believe that right now, but that's why I'm inviting you to get a hold of me. Let's talk. Because you have that desire, or you wouldn't be watching this. You have that fantasy. Maybe it's a fantasy in your head. Man, I wish I could, fill in the blank. Make a difference. Do this, do that. Change the world. Make this money. Speak here, do that. All that stuff is possible for you if you want it. And so I'm inviting you to step into the truth of who you are. Now, motivational speaker, what I do, I can't hand you motivation. But what I can do is part of which I'm doing now is to remind you who you are really. That you come from a sacred, powerful place. That the experiences in life were not meant to break you, even if they did for a while. Like things either ruin us or they refine us. Well, maybe they ruined you. They did me for decades. So I had to make a choice to be different, to be a different person and allow those hard things to refine me so I could get up off my butt and start moving forward in a powerful way to be a light, to be a blessing, to be a gift instead of a drag and a rock and an albatross. You have that capability too. I know it. Never met someone that isn't, for whom that isn't true. So here's the next invitation. If I can help you in any way, I'm offering that help. I have lots of ways that I do that. There's coaching. I help people write books and create programs and find their powerful story and their purpose and make more sales in their business and make money and do all kinds of stuff. All that is part of the work that I do, and it's all founded on remembering and creating the greatest version of yourself, not once, not here and there, not once a year, every single day. So that every opportunity, every challenge, every growth metric you can blow out of the water if you want it. All right, another invitation I have is there are often people that I meet who have these kinds of stories about their own life, struggles, things where they've been ruined and refined and that kind of stuff. I love sharing that. So if you have a story, I want to talk to you. You are invited. Go to KellanFluckigerMedia.com, get the email, reach out, say, I want to be on the podcast, or I want to talk to Kellan about being on the podcast. My team will get with me because I want to share your story. I want to elevate and amplify your effort, your success, your message, your truth. Because the 300 million people I'm reaching isn't just with my message and my story, it's with yours. Yours, right here, right now. So I invite you to get a hold of me and let's chat about that. The last thing I want to talk about is something that is so important and so overlooked. In the world that we have today, there's all kinds of judgment that goes on. You're not good enough. You can't cut it. People get canceled and people get looked down on. And, this class views that class as not good enough. And somebody did something 5 years ago and okay, they're dead forever. None of that is true. I've made mistakes, so have you. You can be wherever you were, whenever you were there, and today a completely different person. So here's the last thing for you. You are enough. You may have had a million messages to the contrary, but you are capable, you are powerful, and what you have to say matters. The very best gift you can give to the world is to be your authentic, it's a buzzword, gets overused, but to be your authentic and most powerful self. That is the self who recognizes your growth, who owns up and is tutored and refined by their challenges and struggles, and who refuses to settle for the easy and obvious. You want to make a mark? Don't settle for the easy and obvious. You want to create something powerful? It's in you. The tools are available. The help is available, including help overcoming fears and doubts and the I don't knows and all the rest. You are capable. This idea that we have here of creating your ultimate life, it's not a fantasy. You can have the kind of life you want, the quality of daily actions that you want. You can make the difference in the world you want to. You can make the money that you want to if you're willing to do the work required to get there. If you're willing to take the steps to climb the mountain you came here to climb. I know that. I can commit to you that that's possible. If you want my help making that happen, I'm all in. Reach out, let's talk, and let's get you moving to create your ultimate life.
Never hold back and you'll never ask why. Open your heart and this time around.
Right here, right now. Your opportunity for massive growth is right in front of you. Every episode gives you practical tips and practices that will change everything. If you want to know more, go to KellanFluckigerMedia.com. If you want more free tools, go here, YourUltimateLife.ca. Subscribe, share.
Stand with your heart in the sky and your feet on the ground.